Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday. It is a great day. Hopefully, you all had some rest. You're having a fantastic weekend. My weekend is going okay. We won a judicial committee appeal. The LNC did about one of our fundraising strategies. That was good news. But I'm not going to talk about that too much because I think that it's actually boring inside baseball and not something that we should elevate because it's internal party stuff. I'm on a journey to reclaim responsibility and meaning within the LP. Saturday night, a couple of libertarians from Montana met with a GOP Senate candidate and President Donald Trump in Montana. Former President Donald Trump. I'm sure some of you will think that comment of mine was conspiratorial. They got to present Defend the Guard legislation to these guys to potentially, future Senator Tim Sheehy's staff and to Sheehy himself and to some people on Donald Trump's team. That's incredible. They got to talk about the things that they care about, why they're running, why they're active in the LP, why they do what they do. FISA, war with Iran, federal spending. It's a huge deal. Really incredible. So major props to those guys for making it out to that Trump rally, the place we're not supposed to be seen at, to do the important work. They had a friendly, positive conversation without compromising their positions on anything. That's 100% what we should be doing. Now, inevitably, people will scream that we shouldn't be talking to Republicans. You should never show up at their rally, which is patently absurd, because if we ever get elected to the Senate, we would be working with both Republicans and Democrats every day because we would be the only libertarian there. So yeah, this was a huge moment for us. And any screeching criticism of it is another example of our inability to recognize our value. We are extremely valuable. We don't understand our value, or worse, sometimes we reject our value, which I think is a very leftist, destructive behavior to engage in. We need to be able to recognize, to acknowledge hierarchies and, maybe believe and act like we believe in that thing we talk about, the competition of ideas. It's very dry in my house. Very dry. We are paradoxically the most important voting bloc in the country and the least likely to get elected. It's a really wild scenario. We should take advantage of the power in our position, being the most important, most powerful voting bloc, and try to gain leverage so that we can improve our weak position. That is our inability to get elected. The two it's a very strange relationship, but one could help the other if we would learn to use it properly. Some of us are doing that, and you're doing a fantastic job. Thank you. I scream in frustration all the time when I see people doing stupid things over and over again, but then I have to check myself because we are not the only group of people who repeatedly bang our heads against the wall and do stupid stuff. It's a very human thing. It's just part of the human condition. We act out things we don't understand all the time, including very unhealthy things and things that are not good for us. This is why psychology, sociology, and anthropology, all that stuff exists. People have made entire career fields out of trying to understand this stuff on a personal and even multi-generational level. We as human beings are much more complicated than we understand. That includes libertarians. Our behaviors contain more information, I think, than we know, than we realize, certainly. Part of that complex behavior is extracting out patterns of behavior that characterize humanity and trying to represent those behaviors in stories and archetypes. Now, libertarians are very well-read, more well-read than the average person. So it stands to reason we should be able to pick up on this faster. We should have come across it at some point in time already. I want us as libertarians to understand what we're like so that we can make better decisions and choose the right behaviors in the future and advance liberty. And that's why I like to talk about these sort of things and bring them up. And sometimes I think that I can be maybe a little too negative and busting your chops a little bit too much. I do think it's important. I want to talk about some of the bad patterns and unhealthy behaviors I see, and also some of the good behaviors and good patterns I see emerging, like taking opportunities and coalitioning. That's why I try to give out some awards at the national convention on that stuff. Try to call out the good libertarians in Montana who are doing really good work, the people who are advancing Defend the Guard. So how do we get to this place? I think it goes sort of something like this. Here's a good analogy. I think Marxism is essentially rebellion against God and hierarchy and the natural order. And the story of Cain and Abel, it's basically the story of Cain and Abel brought to life in political theory. Jealousy and murder, spiteful destruction, all of that bad stuff. That's Marxism. It is the political theory of Cain and Abel. And sometimes I see these same attitudes and behaviors play out in the Libertarian Party to a much lesser extent. No literal murder yet, thankfully. The contempt towards wisdom and progress and natural hierarchy and leadership, that's there. The desire to invert everything, the desire to work towards unproductive goals, very unproductive sometimes. What else? Being a spoiler for the sake of being a spoiler instead of being a fixer. Refusing to run serious campaigns, taking pride in running worthless campaigns, focusing on sex work and things that don't elevate human consciousness, like putting that at the top of your campaign issues and your hierarchy. The story of Cain and Abel, and maybe you don't believe in the Bible, and that's fine, that's your business. But if you're smart, you can still appreciate some of the lessons from it. The story of Cain and Abel, from an archetypal perspective, goes something like this. God tells them both what kind of sacrifices to make, Cain and Abel. Abel abides by God's instruction, and Cain doesn't. Abel receives God's favor more so than Cain does. Cain is jealous, works himself up into a murderous rage, and instead of correcting his own behavior and offering a proper sacrifice, Cain kills Abel, and he kills the example of what is good, hoping he can replace it with something inferior. There are people in this party who have murdered the idea of advancing liberty by pushing the Overton window or winning elections. They've just murdered that idea, and they've replaced it with this golden calf, this participation trophy. I did it. I ran a paper campaign. I exist, and they've also replaced it with the elevation of debased values, essentially, and exalting libertinism. And maybe they did that because they were frustrated. They weren't achieving liberty with other strategies that they also found to be unproductive. And when I say strategies, I mean just simply strategic decisions, not running an efficient campaign, not understanding how to network, so on and so forth. Not necessarily, bad moral choices or intentional errors. We all encounter failures. We all encounter stumbling blocks. But we cannot let these failed false idols become the standard for the party. I actually think that they already have. And so what I'm really in the process of doing is, a very targeted iconoclasm, tearing down, I think, these destructive false idols. We need to continue to work towards what is good, what will bring about liberty, improve people's lives, and make us palatable to other people who share our values, people who want to advance the goal of liberty. Maybe they're skeptical of the Libertarian Party. The people who are working on serious campaigns, who are engaging with their political competition and who are advancing policy and doing good and meaningful work, thank you. That's awesome. I commend you for it. I love that you're doing it. There's a lot of really good stuff coming out of Florida right now, too. They have some candidates who are very, very active. So major props to the Florida LP. The Florida Mises Caucus has also been putting out some really fire marketing materials. I love it. The people who are foaming at the mouth on Twitter, who want to claim the mantle of the one true libertarian. They want to hyper-focus on libertine issues and make us look like furry worshipping psychos. They're the killers, the Cains of the party. And they are probably also part of a Fed operation. We'll see if the CIA will ever answer my FOIA request. But for the rest of us, thank you again. Let's get to work on our campaigns and let's raise our standards so that we can be good standard bearers. Oh, Caleb Maupin says, so cool. LP is becoming an important force within the wider freedom movement. Thank you, Caleb. And of course, no shade thrown at you. I was definitely critical of Marxism. Unification Church also identified Marxism / communism as Cain and a struggle between Cain and Abel in human history. Interesting. That is really interesting to hear. I think that's cool that someone else had the same take on it. Yep. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Support me on Patreon. Get a cool Anti-Deep State Coalition shirt at my Printify shop. I'll see you next time.